Postcard. I got home from Brazil late on a Monday night. The flight was long, 12 hours from Sao Paulo to Frankfurt, then another layover and a short hop to Berlin. My neck was stiff, my bag heavier than I remembered, and all I wanted was a hot shower and sleep that didn't come in plastic seats or against airplane windows. The apartment smelled like it always did after a trip. Closed air, dust, and something faintly metallic. I dropped my suitcase by the door, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed into bed without even turning on the lights. The next morning, I made coffee, answered emails, and ignored the mountain of laundry staring at me from the suitcase. When I went to check the mailbox, there was only one thing inside, a postcard. It showed a beach, a curve of pale sand lined by thick palms and blue-green water so vivid it looked fake. On the back, in quick, messy handwriting, it read, "I'll go again." That was it. No dear, no name, no signature. But I knew the handwriting. It was mine. At first, I thought maybe I'd written it while I was there and forgotten. A drunk moment? A joke? But I never bought postcards in Brazil, and certainly never mailed any. I checked the stamp. It was postmarked 3 days from now. March 31st. Today was March 28th. I turned the card over again. Looked for any sign of a trick. Bad printing. A joke from a friend. Maybe a timed delivery. But the ink was real. The pen had bled a little into the paper. I even scratched at the stamp to see if it had been glued recently. It was sealed firm. The address was mine. I stared at it for a while, then left it on the table and tried to pretend it didn't matter. But it did. By the afternoon, the beach on the postcard started to bother me. I couldn't remember seeing it in Brazil. Not once. I'd mostly stayed inland, hiking, staying in little hostels, a few nights in Sao Paulo. The only beach I saw was far from this postcard-perfect scene. I tried reverse image searching it. Nothing. That night, I dreamed of the beach. I was standing ankle-deep in warm water, the sky overcast but bright, the wind gentle. Something moved in the trees behind me. I didn't look, just stood there, waiting. When I woke, my feet were cold. I checked the apartment. Everything locked. No signs of entry. But the front door felt touched, like it had been opened and closed gently, just once. I told myself I was being paranoid. By March 29th, I'd put the postcard in a drawer, out of sight. I went back to work, met friends for coffee, tried to get back to normal. But that night, the dream came again. Same beach, same light. But now, I was holding something. A postcard. I didn't turn it over. I woke up with sand in my sheets. Just a little, but enough. I don't live near a beach. By March 30th, I'd stopped sleeping. Something was coming. I could feel it. Not in a supernatural sense, but the way you feel weather changing. The way the air presses on your skin before a storm. I checked the drawer. The postcard was still there, but now it smelled faintly of salt. March 31st, the day on the postmark. I stayed home from work. Didn't eat. Didn't answer messages. I sat at the kitchen table, watching the postcard, waiting for something. Nothing happened. Until 6:13 p.m., a knock at the door. Software. Deliberate. Once, I didn't move. Then again. Twice. I stood slowly, heart pounding. Looked through the peephole. No one. Just the hallway. But on the floor, another postcard. I opened the door, slowly, half expecting a prank. A neighbor. Something I could laugh off. But the hall was empty. I picked up the card. Same beach. Same sand. But this time, the back said, "You already left." I didn't understand. I looked at the date. April 2nd. Another 2 days ahead. I turned the card over. The beach looked different now. The trees were darker. The water less vivid. The sky grayer. I dropped it on the floor. That night, I didn't dream. I didn't sleep. April 1st. I couldn't find the first postcard, the one I put in the drawer. Only the new one remained. It had moved, now on the table beside my coffee mug. I didn't put it there. I was sure of it. That afternoon, I checked my passport. Inside, tucked between the pages, was a plane ticket. São Paulo to Berlin. Dated April 3rd. But I'd already come back, hadn't I? I flipped through photos on my phone. Nothing after March 26th. No return flight. No airport selfies. No pictures from home. The last photo was of a bus window. Trees blurring past, somewhere in Brazil. I checked my texts. Nothing about being back. No, just landed. No, back home safe. I opened my suitcase. Still packed. Still sealed. Still locked with the little plastic tag from São Paulo Customs. My heart stopped. I hadn't opened it. I hadn't unpacked. But I remembered being back. I remembered lying in my bed, drinking coffee, holding the postcard. Had I dreamed it? No. I'd lived it. I had. Hadn't I? The knock came again. 6:13 p.m. Same sound? I opened the door before the second knock. No one. Just another card. Same beach. Now nearly dusk. The waves calmer. The sand smooth. On the back. It's waiting. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I ever left that beach. I don't know what day it is anymore. I've stopped looking at the calendar. The postcards come on their own now. Every night. Sometimes two. I don't remember writing them. But they're all in my handwriting. And each one feels more certain. Tonight said, "You'll remember soon." I think I will. I think I'm already there. I just haven't realized it yet. Breath. The hike wasn't supposed to be difficult. Just a solo weekend trip through a lesser-known trail in the Japanese Alps. Peaceful, quiet, the kind of thing I used to do when life in the city got too loud. I took the early train, packed light, and started the climb around 9 a.m. The sky was clear, the path well marked, and there wasn't a soul in sight. Perfect. By early afternoon, I was deep into the forest, the canopy above turning the sun into shifting, dappled light. I stopped for water at a mossy outcrop, feeling that pleasant ache in my legs, the kind that says you're far from everything. That's when it happened. A tap, light, precise, on my left shoulder. I thought maybe a branch had fallen, or a large insect had landed. But when I turned my head, no one. I was alone. I laughed it off, told myself it was nerves. I'd been hiking alone long enough to know the mind plays tricks in the quiet. Still, something about the sensation lingered. It hadn't felt like a twig or a falling leaf. It felt intentional. I picked up my pack and kept going. But for the rest of the climb, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was just behind me. Not following me. Not stalking. Just close. Hovering. Like someone was walking too close in a narrow hallway. Breathing. That night, I camped at a clearing near the summit. I set up my tent, cooked some instant noodles, and watched the sky fade to indigo. The air was thin and cold, but still. Until I heard it. A breath. Right beside my left ear. I turned so fast I nearly fell over. Nothing. No wind. No trees moving. Just that sudden absence of sound. Like something had been there a second ago, and slipped away the moment I noticed. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it. Not touching me. Just there. The sense of weight beside my shoulder. Warm air brushing the side of my neck. Always just left of center. I packed up at dawn without breakfast and started down. I thought it would stop once I left the mountain. I told myself it was just altitude, exhaustion, maybe even a fever. But the breath followed me down the slope, past the trees, onto the bus, back into town, into the train, all the way home. That was 2 weeks ago. It hasn't stopped. Every moment of every day, I feel it. A presence, small, but dense, like a breath that never ends, caught just before an exhale. It never moves, never speaks. It doesn't touch me, but it's always there, just above my left shoulder. I tried everything. Doctors, therapists, even MRIs. Stress, they said. Overwork. No abnormalities. No hallucinations. But it's real. I feel it when I lie in bed, turned on my right side. The air brushes the back of my neck, warm and moist, like someone leaning in close. I feel it when I shower. No matter how hot the water, there's always that patch of skin left cool, untouched. I stopped going out. People started asking questions. I couldn't explain that I haven't had a silent moment in weeks. Not truly silent, because the breath is always there. I tried ignoring it. That only made it worse. Once, I screamed at it, told it to go away. That night, I woke up with bruises on my shoulder. Small, round, like fingertips. I tried recording it, left a mic on all night beside my pillow. 8 hours of static, except once. At 3:41 a.m., there's a sound. A slow, deep inhale, right next to the microphone. Then nothing. I played it over and over. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Sometimes, I wonder if it wants something, but it never acts, never shows itself. It only waits, breathes. Once, I caught my reflection in a window. I wasn't looking directly, just passing by. And I saw it. A smudge. A faint outline. The shape of a mouth near my shoulder. Gone the moment I turned. I've stopped using mirrors. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't turned around on that trail. If I just ignored the tap. Would I be free now? I'll never know. All I do know is this. Wherever I go, it follows. When I sit, it hovers. When I walk, it floats just behind. And when I sleep, it leans closer. Breathing, breathing, breathing. Bench. I used to go there to think. By the lake, in the park. There's this one bench right near the edge, a little off the main path, where the trees thin out and the water comes almost right up to the grass. I don't know why I liked it so much. It wasn't special. Just wood and metal, half-rusted bolts holding it together. But it felt quiet, safe. I started going there every evening after work. Late, usually past 8. The tourists were gone by then, and the families with their strollers and dogs had cleared out. Just me, the lake, the trees, and the wind, and the bench. It overlooked a gentle curve in the shoreline, where the water was calmer, almost still. Sometimes I'd bring a thermos of coffee. Sometimes I'd just sit. I didn't even listen to music, just the soft lapping of water and the occasional rustle in the trees behind me. I never saw anything strange, not for the first few weeks, not until one night in early October. The air was already turning crisp, and the park was colder than usual. Mist hovered low over the water, curling around the rocks near the edge. I remember breathing out and watching the fog of my breath mix with the lake mist. That's when I saw the face, not in the water itself, under the bench. At first, it didn't register. I glanced down absent-mindedly, maybe expecting to see a squirrel or a raccoon. But what I saw, just barely visible beneath the slats, was the pale shape of a face. Eyes wide open, not blinking. It was watching me. I stood up immediately. My heart thumped, but I forced myself to look again. Nothing. Just the empty space under the bench. Maybe a trick of the light, I told myself. A reflection. Maybe a piece of litter. Something white catching the mist. I even got down on one knee, peered underneath. Dry dirt. A few leaves. No water. Nothing else. I didn't stay long after that. The next day, I came back earlier. Sun still up. People still around. I sat on the bench. Nothing felt wrong. Nothing looked strange. I even checked underneath again. Normal. I went home trying to laugh it off, but I couldn't forget those eyes. The night after, I went again. I had to know. This time, I brought a flashlight. The park was deserted. Cold wind. Water quiet. I sat down, waited. Nothing. Half an hour passed, and I almost convinced myself it had been a dream. I even felt a little foolish. Then I heard it. A drip. Not from the trees. Not rain. Just one. Deliberate. Plop. Like something slipping into the water. I leaned forward, turned the flashlight on, shined it under the bench. And there it was again. A face. Not pressed up against the bench, but submerged. As if beneath a sheet of glass. The eyes wide. Lips barely parted. Bubbles rising from the nose. Like it was drowning. But not moving. Just watching. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I stood up fast, nearly dropped the flashlight, and backed away into the trees. When I looked again, the face was gone. I didn't go back for days. But something about it stayed with me. That stillness. The way the face looked too calm. Like it belonged there. Like it had always been under the bench, waiting for someone to look. I told myself I imagined it. That it was a sleep-deprived hallucination. That it was nothing. But I stopped sleeping anyway. Because I started seeing it elsewhere. Not full on. Just hints. Reflections in puddles. Car windows. The dark screen of my TV at night. Always faint. Always half-formed. But always those eyes. Then 3 days later, I woke up with my shoes wet. Soaked, actually. Still tied on my feet. Mud on the soles. Sand between the laces. I checked the door. Locked. No sign of forced entry. I live alone. There was dirt on the doormat and on my keys. I didn't remember leaving, but somehow I had. The next night, I dreamt of the bench. Not sitting on it. Lying beneath it. My face against the cold earth. The lake stretched out in front of me. And just beyond it, something looking back. Its face half submerged. Eyes wide. Silent. I woke up gasping. Shoes wet again? This time, I found sand in my bed. I stopped going to the park. Didn't help. Because now, I hear water. Dripping. Even when the taps are off. Even when I'm nowhere near the sink. Just faint splashes. Like footsteps through puddles. And sometimes, I smell algae. The faint scent of whetstone and lake rot. In my hallway. In my closet. And I still dream. Always the same. The bench. The shore. The face. Closer each time. Last night, I woke up with my phone in my hand. The photo app was open. A picture of the bench. Taken from ground level. From underneath. I checked the timestamp. 2:47 a.m. I checked the weather app. Light rain. 4 degrees Celsius. I don't own a raincoat, but my hoodie was wet. The soles of my shoes were caked in lake mud. And the last photo in my gallery, one I didn't take, was a close-up. A face. Not mine. Not quite human. Just eyes, wide, waiting. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why it chose me. But I know it's not just in the park anymore. The bench may still be there, quiet, innocent in daylight. But whatever's beneath it, it followed me home. Suspended. I used to walk past it every day on my way home from work. The suspended monorail, once a marvel of engineering, now just another relic waiting for demolition. In Wuppertal, Germany, the Schwebebahn hangs like a giant metal skeleton over the river and streets. Most of it is still operational. Most of it. But one line, a small extension that veered off toward the industrial district, had been shut down after a structural inspection nearly 2 years ago. They left one of the cars hanging, still attached to the overhead rail, swaying gently in the wind like a wind chime with weight. It sat directly over a narrow service road that no one used, boxed in by decaying warehouses and chain-link fences. The car was locked, the power disconnected. I know, because I checked. I'm a maintenance engineer. At least I was. I've never told anyone what happened. Not fully. I've written some of it down, deleted it, rewritten it. Maybe this time, I'll leave it. Maybe this time, someone will understand. It started with a light. A soft glow I noticed out of the corner of my eye one night while passing the abandoned car. It was nearly 11 p.m. I'd worked late, and I was cutting through the service road for the first time in months. I looked up and saw it, just a flicker. Then darkness again. I thought maybe it was a trick of the street lamps bouncing off the windows. But the next night, I saw it again. And the next. A pale, steady light from inside the car, as if someone had turned on a ceiling panel or a phone screen. The vehicle wasn't connected to any power. We'd cut it ourselves. Curious, I asked around at the depot. Battery malfunction, someone said. Reflection, another guessed. No one's been up there in ages. They dismissed it. So I checked the footage. There was still a security camera mounted across from the junction, mostly for insurance purposes. I pulled the logs for the last 7 days and fast-forwarded through each night. At 2:36 a.m., the light came on. Exactly 2:36. Every night. It stayed on for 11 minutes, then vanished. There was no sign of movement inside, just that quiet glow, like someone sitting alone under a dome light. I requested access to the car. They said no. Safety concerns. The structure was sound, but old. Accessing it required a harness, scaffolding, keys, bureaucracy. So I went alone. One night, a week after I first saw the light, I returned at 2:20 a.m. with a ladder, a borrowed key from the old depot master, and a portable light clipped to my jacket. At 2:34, I was standing under the car. At 2:36, the light came on. It wasn't faint anymore. It filled the whole car, soft and sterile like hospital lighting. I climbed fast, heart racing. The door wasn't locked. It opened with a soft click. Inside, the air was colder. I stepped in. Empty seats. Silent. No dust. No cobwebs. Too clean. The light buzzed faintly above me. I stepped carefully between the rows. The windows were fogged, but not from condensation, from the inside, like breath had stained the glass. That's when I saw it. A shape, seated at the far end of the car, not moving, facing the window. I froze. My brain stuttered, trying to explain it. A mannequin? A trick of shadows? But the air felt wrong. Heavy. The way it does just before a power outage or a storm. I turned off my light. Silence. Then a sound. Breathing. I stepped back. Slowly. My foot hit the base of a seat, and the metal groaned louder than it should have. The figure shifted. Not turning. Just adjusting. Still facing the window. I didn't stay. I backed out of the car, closed the door behind me, and climbed down as fast as I dared. I don't remember the walk home. I don't remember unlocking my door. I remember not sleeping. The next day, I returned, in daylight, with 2 coworkers. The car was empty. No sign anyone had been there. The light didn't work. The interior was dusty, just like you'd expect from years of disuse. But I found something. A handprint on the inside of the window. High up. Right where the shape had been seated. Not a fresh one. Pressed deep. Long. Like the hand had stayed there for a very long time. That night, I didn't go back. But I checked the camera feed the next morning. 2:36 a.m. The light came on and stayed on for 11 minutes. The same duration, the same glow. The next night, I stayed home, and my phone vibrated at 2:36. No caller, just a notification. Storage full. When I checked, the gallery was filled with photos. Dozens. All taken within seconds. Every single one from inside the monorail car. Empty seats. Foggy windows. And at the very end, in the last image, the shape. Closer now. Not facing the window anymore. Facing the camera. I threw the phone across the room. The next morning, it was gone. Wiped. Photos deleted. Storage normal. No backup. But I still see it. In my dreams. In the corners of bus windows. Reflected in glass buildings. Sitting. Waiting. Always at the edge of my vision. It doesn't move. It doesn't speak. It only watches. I quit my job last month. I moved to another city. Far from the monorail. Far from that car. But at night, always at 2:36, I wake up. And for 11 minutes, I hear the faint hum of fluorescent light and the silence of someone watching me, waiting to face the window again. Bell. I first heard about the school while visiting my cousin in northern Thailand. He was a contractor, hired to inspect a series of old government buildings scheduled for demolition. One of them was a primary school, abandoned for years, sitting at the edge of a rice field just outside Lampong. He joked about how creepy it felt. Like it's waiting for something, he said over dinner, half laughing, half serious. Then he asked if I wanted to see it. I said yes. I don't know why. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I was curious. Maybe something about the way he said, waiting, unsettled me, just enough to want more. We drove out the next morning. The road narrowed to cracked pavement, then to packed dirt. At the end of it stood the school. Single story. Pale yellow paint, faded to beige. The sign out front had lost most of its letters. Grass had overgrown the entrance. The windows were streaked with dust and bird droppings. Inside, the air smelled like wood, rot, and paper. We walked the halls slowly. My cousin pointed out damage. Water stains on the ceiling, broken tiles, sagging doors. But I barely listened. The building felt wrong. Not dangerous. Not haunted even. Just paused. Like it hadn't realized everyone had left. We stepped into a classroom at the far end of the corridor. Desks stacked in one corner. A chalkboard, still faintly marked with long, faded writing. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, cutting long shadows across the floor. And then it rang. A school bell. High-pitched, sharp, clear. Just once. I froze. My cousin didn't even flinch. "You okay?" he asked. You didn't hear that? He blinked. Hear what? The bell. Just now. It rang. He shook his head. No, it didn't. I looked at my phone. 12 p.m. Exactly. We finished the inspection. I didn't mention it again, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Later that night, I searched online. Nothing unusual. No local news. No ghost stories. No urban legends. Just the basic listing of a school that had closed 6 years ago due to lack of funding and declining population. The next Friday, I went back. Alone. I parked at the edge of the field and walked the rest of the way in. The heat was worse that day, and the school looked even smaller than I remembered. I stood outside the same classroom, watching the minute tick over on my phone. 11:59 to 12:00. It rang. Again, just once. Same sharp note, same length. Not mechanical, not digital. Real. Like an actual bell mounted on the wall. I walked inside. Empty. The desks were still in the corner. The chalkboard still bore the faint outline of an old math lesson. And near the door, above the light switch, was a small metal call bell. Like the kind teachers use to signal the end of an activity. No wiring, no battery, no power source, just a bell. And silence. I waited for someone, something to show. Nothing did. But when I left the building and checked my phone again, the photo app was open. And there was a new image. Taken at 12 o'clock exactly. It showed the classroom. Same angle I'd been facing. But there was someone in the photo. A child. Barely visible. Standing by the chalkboard. I hadn't seen anyone. And I hadn't taken the picture. I told myself it was a bug. A reflection? A glitch? I deleted it. The next Friday, I went back. This time, I set up a small camera on a tripod facing the classroom. It was motion-triggered, time-stamped, battery-powered. I checked it twice before leaving it to record. I waited outside, just down the corridor, watching the seconds tick down. 11:59 to 12:00. Nothing. No sound. I checked the camera afterward. At 12:003, the bell rang. Loud and clear, right into the mic. The camera picked it up, but only the sound. No one was in the frame. Nothing moved. The bell didn't shake. No strings. No pressure. Just sound. But the moment the bell stopped, the footage changed. The light in the room dimmed, just slightly. The contrast shifted, and in the bottom corner of the screen, a shape appeared. Not walking in, not rising up, appearing, like the image had been overwritten, or merged with another. A face, a child's, expressionless, just watching. The bell rang again. My cousin stopped talking to me after that. Said I was taking it too far. Said maybe the place got into my head. But I had to know. I had to understand. So I did something I shouldn't have. I stayed overnight. I brought a sleeping bag, a flashlight, and 2 cameras. One inside the classroom, one facing the outside window. I sat in the middle of the room, directly beneath the bell. Midnight passed, 2 a.m., then 4. The air got cold. Too cold for Thailand in April. Then came the breathing. Not heavy, just soft, as if someone were asleep nearby. It didn't come from the hallway. It came from inside the classroom. I turned on my flashlight. Nothing. But when I looked up, the bell was moving. Just slightly. Swinging. No sound. I packed my things and left before the sun rose. The next Friday, I didn't go. I didn't want to know anymore. But at 12 p.m., sitting at a cafe across town, I felt it. A pressure in my ears. Like descending in an airplane. And beneath the noise of traffic and voices, just faintly, I heard the bell. Sharp. Precise. Unmistakable. It's been 4 weeks now, and every Friday at noon, I hear it again. No matter where I am, no one else does. And every time, my phone buzzes. One photo, no notification, just saved silently, always of the classroom. And each time, the child is closer, watching, waiting. I don't go back anymore. But I know, next Friday, at noon, the bell will ring again. And this time, the photo won't show the classroom. It'll show me.